Hey, folks. Today's episode brought to you by my favorite sponsor, SunsetLakeCBD.com. Use the code LEFTISBEST. You will get 20% off. SunsetLakeCBD.com. They sell all sorts of CBD tinctures in 3 different or 4 different, maybe 5 different actually strengths and 3 different flavors. They also have some with melatonin. They have some with CBN, which is my fave, the Goodnight Oil. But they also have CBD coffee, CBD fudge. They have smokables, keef, pre-rolls, flour. They have all sorts of gummies. They have gummies with cordyceps that for focus. But they also have some that are relaxing with ashwagandha mushroom. They also have some with some THC and some terpene. And, well, you know, I'm not supposed to say. But check out all those gummies. And not only that, they don't use any pesticides in their CBD. They use integrated pest management. They take care of the land. They practice regenerative farming practices developed with the University of Vermont. They're up in Vermont. They're also great movement partners. They've donated thousands of dollars. Things like Planned Parenthood, refugee resettlement, carceral reform, union strike funds, food pantries. They've been engaged in mutual aid in the wake of the floods up in Vermont a couple of years ago. And these guys are responsible for sponsoring the live broadcast on election night. SunsetLakeCBD.com, 20% off. Coupon code LEFTISBEST. Check it out. And now for the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder, where every day's Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday. Tuesday, Casual Tuesday. Wednesday, Casual Hump Day. Thursday, Casual Thurs. That's what we call it. And Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, October 18th, 2024. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, from the Uber blog Hullabaloo, columnist at salon.com, Heather Digby Parton will be joining us. Then, special visit to the studio from the Jazz Daredevil. That's what he calls himself these days. Jon Benjamin. Jon Benjamin. Little pretentious, if you ask me, but nevertheless. He'll be in studio to play a song from his latest album. Whatever. 17 days until the election, ladies and gentlemen. Meanwhile, Harris Wallace in full court press in blue wall swing states, and Trump canceling interviews amidst his own personal energy crisis. In the wake of killing Hamas leader Sinwar, Netanyahu says Israel will continue its assault. Meanwhile, back in this country, early voting off the charts in some swing states. Texas Supreme Court halts an execution of Robert Roran. Tennessee State Court rules that doctors are allowed to perform emergency abortions. You know, when your state court has to say that doctors are allowed to perform emergency medical treatment, you know you've got a problem. Corrupt Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton sues doctor for providing hormone treatments to 21 teenagers. Review of Secret Service shows systemic failures. And 4 accounts, potentially by the same, controlled by the same entity, dump $30 million into Polymarket on a Trump bet to project big odds in favor of Donald Trump. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for joining us. Glad to have you. It
Hello.
is
Casual Friday.
It is Casual Friday, according to Emma Vigeland, and
And the calendar.
the calendar. Well, some people, Emma says it's Casual Friday, and there's others who, contend that that's the case.
Okay. Well, maybe we can bet on Polymarket as to how many times we'll say Casual Friday. It really is crazy that we've allowed this kind of gambleification of our politics. It makes no sense. And Elon Musk is touting you should trust the Polymarket odds more than the polls because there's actual money behind it, which is...
Live from the Polymarket studio in LA.
Wow, where'd that come from?
Well, you could have a little less volume on that. But,
So I had a tab open.
Yeah. Odd Hahnemann says, I listened to the Best Show 2000 election episode and learned from Alan Lieberman that George W. Bush sabotaged JFK's plane. Does anyone know Alan's up to lately? He was Q-pilled decades before Q appeared. That's true, actually. I tried to find that, and I couldn't find it. So if you could email at majorityreporters@gmail.com where that is, because I tried to find it on that thing. I tried to find it. It was an Emma's tab. Polymarket offshore, no U.S. participation favored by crypto brothers. Must use their token to participate. Clearly a key indicator. Oh, you got to use their token? You can't just place a bet?
I guess not.
Oh, well, that sucks. I'm not doing that. I'm not getting involved in that kind of thing. All right, let's get into this. Donald Trump, he just canceled an interview that had been set up for weeks and weeks. They have been working on this, the Shade Room. I'm not familiar with this show. To be honest with you, I'm not familiar with any show. Although I did go on the Vanguard yesterday, and people can check that out.
Oh, those guys are great.
I think it's behind a paywall, but maybe they'll open it up. I don't know. And I was
saw
on
some clips.
Wajahat Ali's show that he does on his Substack, Left Hook, I think it's called, earlier in the week, too. Meanwhile, the Trump campaign had spent weeks in conversations with the Shade Room. I think this is from the Washington Post or New York Times?
Politico had
Politico.
this, basically, and the Shade Room is a website geared towards, basically young black people, and I think last week Harris had done an interview with them, and this is the second, at least, major interview this week that Trump has canceled at the last minute.
Yep. In response, a Trump advisor had told Shade Room producers that Trump was, quote, exhausted and refusing interviews, but that could change at any time, according to people familiar with the conversations.
Based on his, Adderall dosage, but they're calling him Sleepy Don. He's exhausted?
Apparently,
Interesting.
Trump-supporting rapper Waka Flocka Flame was offered as an alternative, these two people say.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's where Waka Flocka's career has gone?
Well, the thing about Waka Flocka does the weave, too. So that may have
I have
helped.
no idea what you're talking about.
The weave.
The weave, when you talk about Rosie
weave,
O'Donnell, and all of a
talk
sudden
about-
you talk about Hannibal Lecter, and then you talk about the border and
I
the
call
sharks.
it the weave.
I thought it was the bob and the weave.
No, it's the weave. I call it the weave.
Okay.
A lot of literary scholars at Penn University.
My uncle went to MIT.
Yeah, we did hear that before.
All right, let's get to this. So Donald Trump, in the midst of not having the energy to go on the Shade Room, he did, of course, he has a tunnel from Trump Tower that goes into the Fox and Friends studio. And he got there, but one of the things that happens with this tunnel, just to explain to people so that you can see this, put this still graphic up there and then we can roll it. I just want to, so people aren't confused. one of the things that happens when this tunnel is it actually shrinks your body mass by 15%. And so he looks tiny up here.
And old.
Elderly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. He's just staring into the abyss.
So here is they're presumably talking to him
On the
about-
curvy couch.
Yeah, they're on the curvy couch. He spent about 5 minutes talking about how, like, I'm the only one who gets to sit in the center. Nobody else does this. And then he starts obviously complaining about Fox News.
But you know the difference? In the old days, you never played negative ads. In other words, when I leave here, I'll then be hit by 5 or 6 ads. And in the old days, you never had Ian
Fox
Sams.
News.
Yeah. Well, in the old days. But in the old days, which wasn't so... when I leave, I'll have...
Pause it for a
12
second. I just want let's replay that little exchange, because I don't think anybody's knows what he's talking about. The old days. Like, are you talking like pre-television, or are you talking like when? And Killmeat is like, you mean Fox News?
Like, I mean, I know this whole audience is really old people watching Fox and Friends in the morning, but I don't know if he wants to keep going down the road of being like, back in my day, as his age and cognitive issues kind of come into the forefront.
But is he talking about 8 years ago? I mean, that's the thing, is that nobody can understand what he's referencing.
Yeah,
The
they would have
old
ran
days.
ads against him back then, like for Jeb Bush and stuff.
I think he's trying to say that back in the old days in 2016, Fox News was more supportive of him, and now they're not.
You never played negative ads. In other words, when I leave here, I'll then be hit by 5 or 6 ads. And in the old days, you never had Ian
Fox
Sams.
News.
Yeah. Well, in the old days. But in the old days, which wasn't so... when I leave, I'll have 12 people from Kamala on, and, you know, pretty much unopposed. For 19 days, I don't think we should do that anymore. I think you shouldn't play negative ads. It's very tough. You do a show, and I complain all the time about it. I love complaining. I like to have everything perfect. But when I leave here, I'll have 200 people from...
Because they buy time on Fox.
And, you know, by the time you do it, you say, what are you doing? It's sort of a net, net neutral. Well, we'll see what happens.
A net neutral. You know, this honestly, like, we can talk about the idea of how old Donald Trump is, but that moment where everybody's sort of like laughing at something that's more like not necessarily funny, but sort of charactery, like, oh, this guy's an old character, really honestly reminded me of trips that I would take to the nursing home to see my great uncle Saul, who my son is named after. An amazing character, you know, well into his 90s, and even he made it to 104. Wow. But that quality of like, we're not going to interrupt, and you know, like,
he's just being himself.
We throw out one word to like clarify, just so that we can get into the vague ballpark of what he's talking about, and then we just sort of laugh because he's quite a character. He likes to complain. That it's really starting to take on that hue now. And here is later in that interview, I think it is, after he's done complaining, he starts talking about, this is about public schools, right?
It's not anything to do with school choice, but also separate from school choice. We're going to take the Department of Education, close it. I'm going to close it. We'll have one person, could be you if you decide to retire.
Okay, Mr. President, here's what bothers me.
Central casting.
Here's what bothers me about that. So let's say you have a liberal city, let's Los Angeles, San Diego, and they just decide we're going to get rid of that history. We got new history. This is America built off the backs of slaves on stolen land. And that curriculum comes in.
Then we don't send them money. We would save half of our budget.
Okay.
But wait a second. How are they not sending the money if they don't have the Department of Education?
And
Juicy out of central casting.
How can you look like you're out of central casting as the man Trump will hire to close down the Department of Education? I mean, I guess he could be related to Beth.
You've got glasses, and so that's what he's smart. But also, can we just go back over what Killmead is complaining could be taught in the schools? Because he seems to be saying, like, what if a school decides to actually teach history? And won't that be problematic?
Department of Education, close it. I'm going to close it. We'll have one person, could be you if you decide to retire.
Okay, Mr. President, here's what bothers
Central casting.
here's what bothers me about that. So let's say you have a liberal city, let's Los Angeles, San Diego, and they just decide we're going to get rid of that history.
Pause it again. I'm sorry, folks, but San Diego, is that a liberal city?
No. Isn't that where La Jolla is or whatever?
No, San Diego's down to the south there, and it
more
is
conservative.
It is one of the most conservative parts, I think, like that, that's not out in the sort of, the desert, essentially. That is the most conservative parts of California. But all right, I don't mean to be nitpicky about this, but let's just go back. And I also love the Trump going like central casting. Wait, is there some other part that I should be listening to? What?
I want a compilation every time Trump said central casting.
Yeah.
About that. So let's say you have a liberal city, let's Los Angeles, San Diego, and they just decide we're going to get rid of that history. We got new history. This is America built off the backs of slaves on stolen land. And that curriculum comes in.
Then we don't send them money. We would save half of our budget.
Okay.
Is there more to this? I'm sort of curious as to where he's going. We'd save half of our budget if we just didn't spend half of it or something. It's nuts.
He's not doing great.
No, and they're not doing great either. I mean, San Diego, someone just has been run by Republicans for literally decades.
It's like saying Orange County is such a blue.
Yeah.
No, we know that's a conservative area of California. Or it's like, I mean, it would be like him saying, Long Island over there, they're such commies. It's like, okay, it's a blue state, but that's clearly a conservative area of the state.
I mean, even have we had history have we had any type of curriculum that hasn't included the idea that the country was built on the back of slaves and on stolen land? Like what's the alternate version of that?
And
we fed and housed all the slaves at our expense, and we borrowed the land from the indigenous people.
I mean, look at Thanksgiving.
So as to upgrade it.
Yeah, we improved everything.
Yep.
We've just the fact that this dude is saying we're going to eliminate the Department of Education and it barely makes any headlines just shows I don't what he's done to our politics.
Well, we got to talk about trans sports.
This is also, we should say, this has been the Republican line for at least 2 decades. It's just that they now have a reason to do it. Before it was just they needed to come up with a reason because, of course, the education department is attempts to provide some equalization for across the country in terms of schools and provides funding for stuff that the schools would rather not have to deal with whatsoever, and also makes them adhere to civil rights for all sorts of people who have been denied them in the context of education in the past. And frankly, I hate to make this about Reconstruction again, but Reconstruction was the era in which the so-called radical Republicans of that time instituted essentially public school as a federal mandate. And because there was an understanding at that time that this is how you make good citizens. And the idea that it still lives within the context of the federal government goes right back ultimately to the racist resent of the federal government providing education for a wide array of Americans, particularly at that time, freedmen and freed kids, essentially.
Right.
But more on that later. First, a word from our sponsors today. I'm getting older. I'm trying to up my, there's only so much furniture that I can keep for 50 years and keep sort of like a lot of my furniture has been Frankensteined over the years. Like I recut it and cut it, and I do a little work that way. I actually just repaired Sal's bed, but nevertheless, I just upgraded my bed recently from Article. It's a beautiful bed. It is like white oak. It's got like it's a headboard with it's sort of like picket fence-y, I guess.
Slats?
It's not slats. They're dowels.
Oh.
And it's beautiful. And I got a mattress from them. I did the whole hog. Article believes in beautiful design for every home. Thanks to their online-only model, they have some very delightful prices too, which is the part, I don't want to say like that's, for me, the number one part, but it's like, it's half and half. They have mid-century modern, they have coastal, industrial, Scandi, which is, I believe, what I have. It's more like Scandinavian design. Boho designs make furniture shopping super simple. Article's team of designers are all about finding the perfect balance between style, quality, and price. I also have a beautiful lamp from them, like a brass one. Brass, like floor lamp. It's amazing how much one lamp can actually make a room look better. Their dedicated, thoughtful craftsmanship stands the test of time and looks good doing it. Article offers fast, affordable shipping across the U.S. and Canada. Plus, they won't leave you waiting around. You pick the delivery time. They'll send you updates every step of the way. That was actually extremely helpful. Article's knowledgeable customer care team is there when you need them to make sure your experience is smooth and stress-free. Article is offering you $50 off your first purchase of $100 or more. To claim, visit article.com/majority. The discount will be automatically applied at checkout. All you got to do is go to article, article.com, article.com/majority for $50 off your first purchase of $100 or more. We will put the link in the podcast and YouTube description. And also, this is great for wellness, but it's also great for your taste buds. In my house, we use honey for a lot of different things. The big use we got recently with my Manacora honey was for New Year's. It's like a big Jewish New Year's thing where you have apple and honey, so you have like a sweet New Year. And but you can put it in your tea, which I do a lot, and a little bit on the yogurt. Saul likes it just directly in his mouth, basically. But you got to try this Manacora honey. It's rich, creamy, and the most delicious honey you've ever had. It's ethically produced by Manacora's master beekeepers in the remote forests of New Zealand. Manacora honey contains powerful nutrients to support immunity and gut health. The bees collect the nectar from the manuka tree, which is a tea tree in New Zealand. The nectar is packed with bioactives, and the honey that's produced has 3 times more antioxidants and prebiotics than your average honey. A special antibacterial compound called MGO also comes from the nectar of the tea tree, and Manacora third-party tests every single harvest for MGO and makes these results available through their QR system. It's a game changer. All you need is 1 heaped teaspoon each morning to get the most out of the amazing bioactives in Manuka. You can obviously have more throughout the day, and it's a great way to cut out other sweeteners, but it's a honey with superpowers. And now it's easier than ever to try Manacora honey. Head to manacora.com/majority. Get $25 off their starter kit, which comes with an MGO 850 plus Manuka honey jar. You can actually get honey with more or less MGO in it, Manuka honey. 5 honey travel sticks, a wooden spoon, and a guidebook. So check it out. Manacora.com/majority. We'll put the link in the YouTube and podcast description. Quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking to Heather Parton, or you may know her as Digby. 1 second, ladies and gentlemen. We've got no co-pilot. Okay, folks, we're back. It is the Majority Report. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland, and joining us now is Heather Parton, or Digby, who is not in the center screen. What is? We get a lot of things going. That's all right.
We're figuring it out.
Yes, and people will have to hum at home to the Digby song. Here we go.
We found it, maybe? Oh, no, that's not it. That's ESPN.
Right.
Okay.
All right.
It's okay. We all know it.
Here we go. Here's the Digby song. All right. There it is. That was a long way to go for that.
Good
Heather,
enough. Yeah.
welcome back to the program. We are here 17 days out from the election. You and I have done this, I feel like, 5 times now, in the run up to a presidential election, pretty close
Probably,
anyways.
yeah.
And let's start. I know you've been writing a lot about this. Let's start with this Trump's town hall that took place just a day or two ago. We should also say that was this the town hall too, where they filled it full of Trump voters? I don't think it was. There was another one that he did with
two
women.
of them.
Yes.
Yeah, there were two of them. The women one was filled with his supporters. The Univision one was not. And then there was one earlier, as I'm sure you guys have discussed at length, where he had a little musical interlude, as CNN called it.
Oh, yes.
So there were 3 town halls.
Interlude implies that something happened after that. I think he just walked off. So it's not really an interlude. It's more like I took 3 questions and then we just blew it out. It just became a concert.
Can I just say one thing about that? We don't have to talk about that. I'm sure you've talked about it, but I think that the reason he did that is because at the Kamala Harris rallies, they've got a DJ, sometimes outside the hall and always inside the hall. Oh. And it gets the crowd excited. And there's a lot of tweets and various, sort of moments that are being recorded of people dancing and having a good time in the lines and in the hall. I just think he saw that and thought, hey, I can do that. Play some Pavarotti, get the party started.
But Heather, that's the point, though. Why is he playing like the most depressing music of all time? Sarah, in the arms of the angel, whatever the hell he was playing. The Leonard Cohen's Jeff Buckley, Hallelujah. It's the stuff you put on when you want to cry, like with your mom or something like that.
I know. Well, you know what? I think that this is what I read anyway. That this is the playlist that he's been reported to do. DJ nights at Mar-a-Lago. He gets the paid crowd in there and whatever, and then he comes down and decides to, do a little spinning or, button pushing. And this is his list. I mean, this is his playlist that he plays for his crowd. And I think it, for some reason, I guess it makes him happy. I have heard that, cult leaders often do this. They play music that makes them feel good and sort of, gives them, I don't know why Alleluia makes him feel good, or Ave Maria, or any of the others, but that seems to be what he did. So anyway, I don't mean to belabor it, but I just wanted to point that out.
Well, the Ave Maria is it has to be that he saw, it's some movie. I can't remember what it was, but it's some like mob movie or something like that. Yeah. What is it? Is it in The Godfather? Is it? Yeah, that's what it is. He saw it in The Godfather. It's very easy to figure out what these songs are about. He saw them in The Godfather, or they played him in Studio 54. That's the only reason why he does YMCA. Yeah. It's because it reminds him of the days where he's doing, God knows what in the bathrooms of Studio 54. And the interesting is Ave Maria played twice, which means that his entire playlist is 35 minutes long. Maybe there's only 5 or 6 songs on it.
I think so.
But anyway. It also suggests that, and I think they must know this, because like when Harris said at her campaign rally the other day, where there was like some, anti-choice protesters, she said, I think you're at the wrong rally. You want the small one down the street.
Yeah.
I think they know that he is obsessed with the rallies.
Yes.
And
no doubt.
We've had people who will monitor our show because they're so obsessed, that they they're having some type of feud with us in their minds, and they're monitoring our show, but they're doing it sort of surreptitiously. And it's the only thing I can think is like, this is very odd behavior. Like this is, and Trump, you'd think you're running for president, like there must be more for you to do. But
well, they're saying this morning that they're canceling all these events that he's doing out of exhaustion. That was just reported in Politico. Actually he's just saying, I won't do any more. I can't do it. I'm exhausted.
Sounds like depression.
Yeah.
There was a great thread about this.
Been there, yeah.
People are missing that. Yes, he is losing it slowly, but he's also extremely depressed. And like the rally stuff, I think that's what you're hitting on, Sam. That's like a dopamine rush for him, where he feels beloved, and he's been obsessed with the rally size since day one. His first like insane lie was that his inauguration crowd was larger than Obama's. So this is the kind of thing where he's been in public life as a presidential candidate. I know he ran reform in 2000, but like he's been running since 2015. It's nearly 10 years at this point. There's a lot of information on what to trigger him with, and it seems like Harris is capable of doing it in a way that Biden hadn't been able to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with that said, he did the one town hall that was apparently so packed with Trump voters that Fox had to cut around people saying, I voted for you yesterday. Now I have a question. And so it makes it really hard to say they're undecided voters when they're bragging to Trump that they've already early voted for him. They literally had to cut around that stuff.
They did.
But here is Trump with the Univision town hall, and let's just play this clip and then walk us through, like, you did a piece on this particular, I think, voter.
I am a Republican, no longer registered though. I want to give you the opportunity to try to win back my vote. Okay. Your, I'd say, action and maybe inaction during your presidency and the last few years sort of, was a little disturbing to me. What happened during January 6th and the fact that, you waited so long to take action while your supporters were attacking the Capitol. Coronavirus, I thought the public was misled during coronavirus, and that many more lives could have been saved if we would have been informed better. And also people in your administration who don't support you. I'm curious how people so close to you and your administration no longer want to support you, so why would I want to support you? If you would answer these questions for me, I would really appreciate it and give you the opportunity. Your own vice president doesn't want to support you now.
Thank you, Ramiro.
So the people that don't support a very small portion. We have a tremendous, about 97% of the people in the administration support me. But because it's me, somebody doesn't support, they get a little publicity. The vice president, I disagree with him on what he did. I totally disagreed with him on what he did. Very importantly, you had hundreds of thousands of people come to Washington. They didn't come because of me. They came because of the election. They thought the election was a rigged election, and that's why they came. Some of those people went down to the Capitol. I said, peacefully and patriotically, nothing done wrong at all, nothing done wrong. And action was taken, strong action. Ashley Babbitt was killed. Nobody was killed. There were no guns.
Hold on for a second. There's a couple of things that we need to sort of just.
I know.
First off, the vice president was wrong. We disagreed on, I guess, presumably, I wanted him to reverse the election for me. We disagreed. We disagreed strongly, and then we disagreed, and then as he says, Ashley Babbitt was killed, a complete non sequitur, and then he says no one was killed. You can see the woman as they're panning it through. There's a woman in the audience going like, "What?"
Yeah.
And but this is, it's amazing to me that these questions he has not been subjected to these specific questions, it seems like, ever before, which is stunning.
It is stunning, and this particular town hall was the best one we've seen by far, in my view. I think I watched them all, as torturous as that is. These were the best questions of that I've seen coming from the public. I mean, and it wasn't just this one. There were a couple more that were really good too, and he was extremely uncomfortable. I mean, he rattled off his usual litany of lies, but the reaction. I mean, one of the reasons that it was good was because Univision actually did reaction shots in the audience, which you never see, right? Except for people going, so that was pretty good, and that reaction cracked me up too. I mean, this woman goes, "Huh? Yeah, what?"
All right, well, let's keep playing it, and
keep playing it, because that's the most important part is coming up.
Yep.
And patriotically, nothing done wrong at all. Nothing done wrong. And action was taken, strong action. Ashley Babbitt was killed. Nobody was killed. There were no guns down there. We didn't have guns. The others had guns, but we didn't have guns. And when I say we, these are people that walked down. This was a tiny percentage of the overall, which nobody sees and nobody shows. But that was a day of love from the standpoint of the millions. It's like hundreds of thousands. It could have been the largest group I've ever spoken before. They asked me to speak. I went and I spoke, and I used the term peacefully and patriotically. If you look at the Democrats, what they say, you look at Maxine Waters and you look at Hillary Clinton and you look at what they say, and they don't put that on. They only put Republicans on. But they couldn't get me because of the fact that I said everything's got to be peaceful and patriotic. And we'll see how it all works out. But I think that we're right now in another election. All I want is honest elections. I'm willing to take any chance. I want honest elections.
Well, the big thing, let's just start with the, we didn't have guns. The other side had guns. Aside from, if there are only two sides, maybe there was like a couple other sides that we don't know about, but the guns that the other side had were police officers who were like literally terrified that the Congress people were going to be, they're trying to hang Mike Pence. And the other weird part about it is the we part seems because wasn't the story, I mean, it's evolved, right? Like they're just tourists. Some people went rogue.
They're patriots.
Antifa herded them in there. Like
Antifa, like that was the big thing.
FBI agents.
Now it's we.
Yeah.
So and of course it was a day of love. He loved it. He loved it.
He loved it. Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean that line there where he said, we didn't have guns. Yeah, the other side had guns. That kind of says it all, right? I mean, and he's been denying that, he had anything to do with that. But let's face it, he's also saying he's going to pardon them all. He calls them hostages. He's, saying that they've been unfairly, they weaponized the government against these people, that they were just, it was a peaceful protest, et cetera, et cetera. So we've known, of course, that he considers them his people. But actually saying that he's in the midst. People may have forgotten, but he has been charged with several felonies for being involved in what happened that day. And he denies that he had anything to do with it. Today, apparently, the special counsel, Jack Smith, they're going to release a whole bunch of new information from the charging documents that have been redacted. And the judge said yesterday, well, no, we're not going to withhold that. It would be, I liked how she said this too. She said it's not, it would be election interference just as much as if I withheld it as if I don't. So we're going to go with transparency and we're going to release it. Now, not all the stuff that was redacted is going to be seen, but a whole bunch of it is. It's going to come out today, maybe coming out right now. I don't know. So we'll see more. All that means is that, Jack Smith is probably watching that. And that will make its way into the case. There's Donald Trump on television saying, we didn't have guns, the other side had guns, clearly indicating that he identified with, and as we all know, was the leader of that group that went into the Capitol to fight like hell, as he said on the dais that day. So that was interesting. The Day of Love was also interesting. He said it before, and it's just so ridiculous. It just, again, that's some throwback, I think, to the 1960s.
I was just thinking, it sounds like
it's
flower
a day
power.
of love. Yeah, exactly. It's a day of love, and so, this is his explanation. 97% of the administration is for him. I mean, really? I mean, have they done
Well,
a
it depends
poll?
on how you want to count, right? I mean, there are like, what is it, like 10,000 people you bring in?
It's half the previous ballot, but...
But it's also like what Jack Smith has already released in, I guess it was 2 weeks at this point. It's already enough. I mean, it's just amazing to me.
Of course it is.
The fake elector scheme, he wanted to replace electors with Trump loyalists, the ones who are there to represent via the Electoral College the will of the vote. He tried with dozens of court cases, immediately thrown out of court to overturn the election. And what the Jack Smith indictment showed so clearly is that Mike Pence called Trump on the morning of January 6th and said, I'm not going to do this. Trump had taken out the part where he said, criticized Mike Pence in his speech to all the January 6ers prior to that call. Pence called him. He puts it back in the speech, knows that Pence says he's not going to do it, then says to all that mob, Mike Pence has got to do the right thing, goes back in, hears that the mob is chanting, hang Mike Pence, and fires off a tweet, again, inciting violence against Mike Pence. The way that he laid it out in the indictment, it's so clear what the intent was. He wanted to stoke at least the threat of violence against his vice president as his last-ditch effort because the electors scheme in the court cases failed. There's no ambiguity here.
There isn't. And believe me, he was on the horn with Steve Bannon through this entire period. And Steve Bannon was out there on his podcast telling, it's highly, it's a very successful podcast telling people, buckle up. It's going to get crazy out there, ginning up the crowd. So, of course, and, this is, it's obvious. I mean, I think we all know that for whatever reasons. Well, we know what the reasons are. Because the Supreme Court has now claimed that, he may have been, we don't know for sure, but it may have been his official duties to try and hang Mike Pence. So we'll have to go through the entire legal process to see whether or not they'll back that up. I won't be surprised if they do. But yeah, it's bizarre.
Yes.
One thing that occurs to me too about this, the Jack Smith thing, is that we're about to hear for the next week how if we had seen pictures of Hunter Biden's testicles, that the 2020 election would have turned out differently. But here Jack Smith is laying that stuff out. It's going to be interesting to see if that is, how much we are subjected to that, I guess we should say.
Well, that's a good question. I don't know.
What is that? Are we getting up other extra sound coming in?
No, I don't think so.
Is that microphone on? No.
No.
All right. Well, whatever it is, we're okay. So I want to go to, so that's the town hall. I mean, it was interesting. I don't know how much that gets picked up, but what I also found interesting about that guy was, and I've been struggling with her, with Harris's strategy, right, over the past 4 or 5 weeks. The idea that really maybe in the wake of the or during the convention, but the idea that so much of the strategy has been we're going to go for those sort of wobbly Republican voters, and moments like seeing that guy in the town hall make me think maybe there's value in it. He's a Cuban descent. That's where the Republican stuff comes from in New Jersey. Seems like the sort of Trump voter that you lost maybe at different times. And so I don't know. What's your sense of Harris doing this? Like it's a trade-off, right? I mean, for every person who might be swayed by Liz Cheney, maybe you're, picking up, maybe you're losing half a Democratic voter or something.
I don't know. I mean, I'm like you, of course. I think anybody on the progressive left is kind of going, Liz Cheney. Oh my God. I called her the most dangerous woman in America in a piece I wrote about the fact that I thought she might be the first woman president at one point. She was, becoming that powerful in the Republican Party. But from what I understand, and, you don't know what anything you're hearing is true, that in the data that they have and the focus groups and what have you, that there was a group in there of people who were gettable, that particularly January 6th seems to have just clicked for them in some way that, I don't know, just the picture of those people storming the Capitol, tearing down the American flag, hitting cops over the head with American flags, that kind of stuff. For whatever reason, why it took that to sort of, make them realize that Donald Trump was a complete, monster, which he really is. They were seeing this group as being gettable in this and reminding them of January 6th and then giving them, some validators and a quote permission structure. I hate all this jargon, but that they could maybe persuade some of those people to come over. Now, whether it works, we don't know. But I think they were literally they're saying anyway that they were seeing this in the data, that this was a group, and it's so close that they were just figuring we got to go. The other side of that, losing the progressive side, I think that the Harris campaign, and I sort of feel this way too. I just feel like progressives are smart enough to know that this, whatever, we'll fight with Liz Cheney later. If she starts demanding things, we're not going to stand for it. And I've kind of heard AOC saying a few of these things, kind of like, we're here for now, and we'll be behind you all the way, but don't think that this, any kind of capitulation to the right in terms of this campaign is going to hold. Now we'll see. And I don't, Harris isn't exactly a super progressive. I mean, she's sort of mainstream Democrat, I think. But I think that progressives are just going to hold their noses, put their heads down, and they're not going to take a chance that Donald Trump could be reelected, right. Especially the nuttier he gets. They're just not going to do it. And I think it's taking them for granted for sure, but maybe this campaign is just not what's going to happen. What I do think, though, and going back to the Univision town hall, which is one of the reasons why I thought it was so good, was that this group of voters, not just that guy who was a former Republican or on the fence Republican, these are Hispanic voters, Latino voters, and there are a number who are apparently, thinking that they might vote for Donald Trump this time. It's concerning. Harris did the Univision town hall a week ago, and she was very effective. In fact, the same guy who asked that question was at the Harris one too, and asked her a question. Very substantive answer. It wasn't the same question. It was a different question, very substantive answer, took it very seriously. And, I think it was impressive. But the questions that were happening in this town hall, in the one with Trump, exposed something that I hope a lot of Latino voters did see. I hope they were able to see this, or at least see clips of it. Because what it exposed was, first of all, Trump's complete and total ignorance about the actual issues at stake for Hispanic voters. He just, I think we know that, but right. He really exposed it. There was one gentleman there, and there were a couple of questions that were great. One of them was that he asked, what do you say to the parents of shooting victims about your gun agenda? And he said, well, I'm a big supporter of the Second Amendment, and people, people need their guns. We won't be able to take away their guns. People need their guns for entertainment, for sports. I mean, he said that. It's like, whoa. And there was a bit of a gasp in the audience. And And then there was another one, and this is the guy, I wrote quite a bit about him in my piece. He's obviously a farm worker from California. He's from Santa Maria, California.
Played that yesterday, yeah.
Yeah, an older guy, 64 years old, and said, I've spent years working with my hands, picking strawberries and chopping broccoli. Who is going to do that work if you deport all the people, the migrant workers who do that work, and how's it going to affect the cost? And Trump was stumped by this and ended up saying something very interesting, because he said, I want all the workers to come in legally. I just don't want them to be illegal. And I don't think he really understood that this guy was a farm worker. He had it in his head that he was a farmer, which I guess you can call him a farmer, but he's a farm worker. And he said, we just want people to come in legally. And I've been hearing Trump say this lately about the deportation plan that he has. I just want to we need lots of people. We need people here. And I just want them to all come in legally. Now he's talking about, maybe a version of the old Bracero program back in was started in World War II. I think it went all the way through the 60s. They changed it to the H-1A visa for temporary farm workers. In any case, his plan, which he obviously doesn't know anything about, is to eliminate all of that. No guest workers, no temporary visas, no anything. So he may not know that, and I've heard that it's Elon Musk who's telling him, you should really emphasize the legal immigrant thing. But he doesn't understand, and this guy understands, and I think most Latinos, anyone who's got any relatives or anybody who may be working in that sector or have some experience in that sector, understand that this is a disaster for the American economy if they deport all these people. And they're, of course, the easy pickings, right? It's very easy to just go up to a farm somewhere in California and just start picking people up, if that's what you want to do. The people who are picking the strawberries and chopping the broccoli. So, what he's talking about, he's going to come up against a big force within his own party, led by a guy named Stephen Miller and a whole bunch of other people who believe in the Great Replacement theory. And the Great Replacement theory says we don't care about the economy. This is a matter of life and death for our culture. We have to get rid of these people that are polluting our culture. That's where the poisoning the blood comes in. That's where all this fascist talk comes in. And that is what, I don't know, Trump happy to deport people. I'm sure, this is his big campaign. He believes he can win by, demonizing immigrants. And believes he won in 2016 by demonizing immigrants. But the real plan here is very, very, it's fascistic.
Right.
And he doesn't know it, but I'll tell you something, that guy knows it.
That's the whole point. I mean, at the end of the day, I wouldn't, Donald Trump is not pulling the levers. It's that he has an agenda that is, vaguely racist in his mind, but really just ultimately about, full-on kleptocracy and with racist undertones. And, he's just going to let his guys do what they do. I mean, this is,
But I do think it's freaking out the business press. I mean, I think that's part of the stuff where Harris is gaining on the economy. It's the tariff thing and this kind of rhetoric that has them more like, okay, maybe this is a more stable option for us. And it's also part of what gives me a little bit more confidence in terms of her floor.
I think so too. And the one thing I just want to mention about this too, Elon Musk, you have to, sort of put him in here. He is a big proponent of the Great Replacement theory, but he's bought into the idea that they're bringing in people, the Democrats are bringing in people to vote for them. That's the old Ann Coulter Adios America thing. You remember that was from a while back. But that's part of the Great Replacement theory too, is this idea that they're going to come in, they're going to all vote for Democrats. And can I just say how weird that is? Because we're talking right now about how Donald Trump is making huge inroads with the Hispanic community. What are they talking about?
The tendency of immigrants, particularly from Latin America, to have conservative social, cultural values and outlook. I mean, it's well sort of documented. And sometimes, I mean, I think that's what we're seeing, frankly, with a lot of that is
for
less.
Sure.
Let's turn to but the bottom line is like, even if that's the plan, right? It's like a 10, 20 year, a 30 year out plan at that point. And, I don't know how you predict that, which way folks are going to go at any given time. I mean, obviously, like, it's hard to understand why people would vote for Donald Trump in many respects outside of just sort of a general disgust. But we have a significant amount of population in the country right now who believes the most bat crap crazy things as if they're real, like in terms of the pandemic and QAnon and just like all of it. And all right, well, let's I want to briefly talk about with that happening, and I don't know if we're going to get to. I want to talk a little bit about like sort of some of the early voting results that are in. I think we got a little bit of time to do that. Let's play this clip because then I do want to get to that piece that you did about New York and California because I think this is one of the more interesting things about what Trump has been doing when he has the energy. This is a clip from Midas Touch show where they're interviewing a guy named Tom Bonnier, and he is he works with a like a Democratic, I think, data firm or Democratic supporting data firm.
So is Midas Touch, right? Like we should just put that caveat in. They're a Democratic Party kind of.
They're their show. Well, yeah, but group. I mean, nevertheless.
Yeah.
Here is he's breaking down the early votes coming out of Michigan. Obviously, Michigan and Wisconsin in particular in Michigan in particular, we've heard Stefanik say that her internal polling says that Harris is down in Michigan.
Yeah.
We've heard other Michigan Democrats. I mean, this is like so difficult to sort of get a sense of what's actually going on at any given point. I don't know if this gives us a better sense, but these people have voted already. So we have let's just listen to this.
There was a post that you made recently. One of the theories, this is what you write, one of the theories of Trump's path to victory is an increase in turnout and support among young white men. Well, it's too early to say one way or another, but the turnout gender gap in the male voting in Pennsylvania so far is bigger in favor of women than it was at this point in 2020. The gender gap is even bigger among young voters in Michigan relative to 2020. So talk us through this, and then let's talk more broadly about some of the trends you've been able to see thus far.
Yeah, this one surprised even me. I didn't expect to see this in the data. And, part of the reason is we've been hearing for 4 years now, or almost 4 years, that Republicans were going to fix their mistakes from last time. They were actually going to push their people to vote early. They realized that Donald Trump convincing his supporters that mail voting was fraud was a tactical error, and they were going to change that. And so our expectation has been that we should see Republicans accounting for a much larger share of the early vote than we saw 4 years ago. And we can get back to that. But the second element of this was this case that we've been hearing that, low propensity voters, as they call them, voters who generally don't turn out at higher rates, are actually much more likely to be Trump supporters, especially younger men, especially younger white men. You've seen Trump going to the UFC fights, the Joe Rogan stuff. They're really spending a lot of time, effort, and energy in appealing to these voters. And you can argue about whether that's smart or not. But in the end, if what they're doing is effective, you should be seeing that showing up in this early voting data at this point. Again, in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, in these key states, you're seeing several 100,000 votes have already been cast. So it's not a small data set at this point. So I was shocked to see when we looked at the early vote data, again, especially in Michigan and Pennsylvania, and we looked at these younger voters, we actually saw the gender gap has flipped. It's actually wider now that women are accounting for an even larger share of the early vote than they were at this point in 2020. In the end, I probably shouldn't be surprised, right? Because we've all been talking about this for 2 years now. Since Dobbs, the group that has been most energized and activated in this post-Dobbs environment is young women. But what it's telling us is these Republican efforts are failing, and, perhaps they're paying the price for not building a true on-the-ground campaign.
And
so there's a couple of themes in there that, we've been talking about. It's been, something that we've been speculating for, months and months. One being, is it a good strategy to go after, and they've been doing this mail thing for 4 or 5 months at least, going after low propensity voters, because low propensity voters are low propensity voters. They don't come out very often. And, I always, after having gone through this a half a dozen times or so, whenever I hear somebody like, we're going to get the people who don't vote to vote, it happens. It's certainly, we've seen record-breaking numbers over the
Obama
past.
coalition had a lot of low propensity voters, but it hasn't been the case for Biden, and I don't think that's the strategy for Harris.
We've had record-breaking, percentages of people voting, so more people have come out, but it's not been the strategy per se.
Yep.
It is like people are getting caught up in the enthusiasm. When people have to articulate that's the strategy, that's when I get a little suspicious. And the other element of that is like the low propensity voters, and the fact that like you got Elon Musk just pouring money into some outfit that didn't really exist 6 months ago, and Charlie Kirk running the other Get Out the Vote, which is all centered around an app that you got to pay for to actually do the work.
And Sam, remember that article that we were talking about earlier in the week? The New York Times said that the Trump campaign has something like 11 full-time staffers versus the hundreds they had last time and the hundreds that Harris does, because they're outsourcing campaign operations to Turning Points USA and to Elon Musk, which this is what I like, trying not to be overconfident. But if we heard a Democrat was doing this, we would be ripping them to shreds and saying how they're going to lose the election.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, this is particularly fascinating to me. This idea of the young guys not showing up for the early vote and having the gender gap widening, and apparently the younger women showing up in droves to vote early. And in fact, people are voting early in massive numbers everywhere where there's voting early, even in North Carolina, and they're
I just saw that piece today. Yep.
I mean, this is kind of interesting. Now, I don't like to get my hopes up about early voting because I've done that before, and then it all evens out in the end. But if it's this low propensity, young bro, voter, Joe Rogan voter, I don't know about you, but I have a feeling that the young Joe Rogan voter isn't gonna get up early on election day and go, wow, I'm going to go stand in line and I'm going to vote, and I'm going to stand in line with all these old white people and, whatever. And then I'm going to wear my I voted sticker. I mean, that's just not a ritual that particular group, I have to assume, is just really excited about doing. That just doesn't track for me. They don't have a big stake in this. This is all about, in fact, I heard it was Mark Cuban yesterday. They were asking him, what about the manosphere? You're involved in that. Where's that coming from? And he says, they think Donald Trump's a gangster. That's what they said, tell me. They think Donald Trump's a gangster. That's just fun and games. That's not rolling out of bed and going and voting on election day. So if they're not voting early, if they're not just filling out the ballot, if they're, sitting around the breakfast table while they're eating their Cheerios, then I just don't think it's the election day vote of those kind of, the odd voters that are, low propensity voters. I don't see that's going to happen. I will be very surprised. Having said all that, what is interesting about this strategy is that Donald Trump signaled this many months ago. This is all about him. He had said, what he wanted to focus on was election integrity. And he wanted, when they fired Ronna McDaniel, that's what it was over. Rona McDaniel wanted to have a real field operation. She had set it up that they were going to have the usual stuff like every campaign has with paid people, and they were going to do the normal canvassing, et cetera, use the same voter file. Absolutely not. He didn't want that. He wanted all the resources to go to election integrity, meaning, of course, intimidation, vote suppression, challenging the vote after the fact. That is where his focus has been. He has said from the beginning, don't you worry about turnout. I will bring the turnout. So this idea that somehow later in the game, and there was a rule change by the FEC that said that you could do a little bit more coordinating with outside groups.
Yep.
So that enabled them to designate Turning Point and Charlie Kirk, the young man guy, right? I mean, he's the one who supposedly got the inside.
He did a great job with Carrie Lake in Arizona. We should
no kidding.
people.
And by the way, he's now been demoted. I mean, they had him in Wisconsin. I think he was in Wisconsin, Arizona, and one other state. Now he's just in Arizona, I think. I think Elon got rid of him and said, get out. And he took over. And Elon took over like a month ago. I mean, this is really recent. And the whole idea there, now he's paying people in Pennsylvania to get on this list, which apparently is it's a gray area, legal area. He's not paying people to vote. He's paying people to sign a petition. And in that petition, they get the names of whatever. Encourage liberals everywhere in Pennsylvania to go sign up, get your $100.
Yeah, you get, I think it's like $50 in Pennsylvania.
100 now. He's raised
Is it $100?
Yeah, $100.
So they're
go get your
basically, the way they're trying to identify if you are a potential Trump voter is by getting you to sign this list. They'll pay you to sign the list. And then presumably they're going to come and try and get you to go out and vote on, you're going to be on the list. You're going to get spammed. You can go get a what do you call it? You can get a burner app on your phone for a fake number that only costs you a couple of bucks. I mean, I'm talking, this is a business. This is one financial advice I'll give you. You get the burner app, you do it for 1 month, you put in the fake number, you get your burner email address, you make your $100. Although I will also say, you got to trust Elon Musk to send you the check, which I think is dubious.
Yeah,
but,
right. Get it in cash. Yeah,
yes,
get it up front.
and just understand that, like, you're also not only getting paid to do this, after your burner app and your email, your fake email address, maybe you spent $10-15. You're still going to get 100. That's 85. This is a pure profit play. And you're also tying up their resources.
Exactly.
Not just in terms of the dollars, which he has an endless amount, but they're gonna be spending their time trying to get you to vote. And the best thing for you to say is, I'm leaning Trump.
Yeah, just the fact that they're doing this at all, that tells me that they don't really have a good list. They don't know who they're targeting. They're trying to find a way to target more people who are low propensity voters. I mean, this seems pretty desperate to me.
But it also sounds to me as if Elon walked into an office and it was like, I was up last night, completely out of my mind on ketamine. And I had the greatest idea. What we can do is pay people to tell us if they're potential voters, not to vote. And this is what we're going to do. And you could see everybody around the office go like, yes, great idea, as they're banking like 5 times what they would normally make anyways to do this type of work. It really reeks of that. All right. Last thing I want to talk about, just briefly, because we have a musical guest waiting for us who's
tuning his instruments now.
Yes. New York and California.
Yeah.
Trump has been going out to Long Island. He was in California a week ago.
Colorado, too, which is considered safe blue.
Yeah. He's in these safe blue, but New York and California have more Republican Congress people than they should.
Yeah.
And at one point, I think we had this conversation, and for the first thing you think is like, oh, he must be, this is the way that he gets buy-in from the Republicans. He's going to try and help with a Republican majority, but that's not really what it is.
He doesn't give a crap.
Well, that's the other thing. After, like, you think, like, wait a second.
He's wasting his time. Come on.
No, what you wrote about this, he's got, and it dovetails with what you just said about, like, they are laying the groundwork for the I don't know if they consider it a strategy A or strategy B, but it's like an insurance policy.
Yeah.
What can we do before the election that begins to build the case that the election was stolen? And how do we basically carry through on the plan that we had last time, which was, shoved together, and, Rudy Giuliani was running it. Now they're professionalizing this more.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're just, they're just trying to cover their bases here. And there are seats in California and in New York that are very flippable to the Democrats. And there's a very good chance that some of them will, if things go, the Democrats' way. So he came out to Coachella and left his people stranded in the desert for hours after the thing. And they all had to walk 5 miles to get to their cars. He's going to do the big Madison Square Garden Nazi rally. And, part of the reason for this is to try and boost those Republicans, give them a little bit of something to say that, yes, he's here, he's in play, try to help them win. Because I don't know if people remember this, but the new House is seated on January 3rd, which is 3 days before the certification. So if they can have Mike Johnson in there, it gives them a number of opportunities that may present themselves. Now, obviously, Kamala Harris is not going to be, Mike Pence, so that's off the table. If she wins, that's kind of it. But there are other things that Mike Johnson could do to gum up the works. And, there are lawsuits that can be filed refusing to seat certain people in the House. They've asked him about this, and he's very evasive, very strange in the way that he's answering questions on this question. If the Democrats, don't win the House back, which, who knows? But if Mike Johnson is the speaker on January 6th, there are things that he can do. Even under the new Electoral Count Reform Act, there are things that he can do. And he has expressed a willingness to do, to contest the election. He wrote an amicus brief the last time to take the case to the Supreme Court, which didn't go anywhere and the court didn't take it. But I don't know. Will this court take it? Maybe. It's a different court. They seem pretty inclined to help out old Donald Trump. And then we've heard Chris LaCivita, the campaign manager for Donald Trump. He was at an event with Jonathan Martin from Politico, and Martin asked him something about, so what do you think? Is there going to be a big thing after the election? And LaCivita said, the election will not be decided until the president puts his hand on the Bible and takes the oath on Inauguration Day. That's when the election will be decided. So you tell me. I think Donald Trump, if they told him, hey, we need to do some big rallies in California and New York, he's thrilled. Oh, I'm going to play the Garden, do whatever. We got to keep those, got to help those House seats. He may not know what the long game is that they're playing. But I think his campaign knows it. And I think the Republican Party knows it. And I think that they are absolutely using that as a way to potentially try and hold on to the House. And, it's a twisted and scary thing. In fact, at some point, I don't know if I'll talk to you before the election, but whatever happens, the election is not going to be over when the election is over.
Yeah. Somebody asked on the IM, like, why I keep referencing that. Like, the count, it's likely that the count is not even over on November 5th. But even once the count gets over, there's gonna be contention. And the real question is how much, who controls the House and the Senate for that matter, and B, how much the press entertains this as a legitimate enterprise.
Yeah.
And frankly, some of the federal, some of the state courts, but although we've seen some good indications, at least out of Georgia, as to, how far they're going to go, how much the media entertains this notion. I mean, you and I remember the 2000 election, and how much the media's coverage shaped the sort of like the default, right? Like, you know, when George W. Bush's cousin, Ellis, I think his name was in charge of who calls the Fox News election coverage, they called it for Bush when it was clearly not not clear who won Florida. Like, it's still not in my estimation. It was Gore, but that created a default, so much so that the Supreme Court even said, like, well, if we allow the count to continue, we're prejudicing George W. Bush because he's presumed to be the winner already in Florida.
It's interesting you bring up Fox, though, because that is what set Trump off when they called Arizona in 2020. They were the first to call Arizona. So were they effectively bullied? And does Fox try to lead the charge on a more 2000-style election denialism right from the get-go because Trump bullied them into
they fired
submission?
all the people who made the call. They fired the people who made that call. They're not there anymore. So, yeah, of course. Fox will not do that again. I can guarantee it. That will not happen. And we don't know what will happen. I mean, and in fact, going back to the idea about these House races, California's count takes, you know, a couple of months sometime. It's I don't know what the deal is, but, you know, for those House races that are close, we won't know that for at least a month and maybe longer. It takes forever to count those votes. So, you know, this kind of churn and all these questions are going to go on. And by the way, Trump has a whole, I mean, this is what I'm saying, the election integrity part of his campaign, that is where the energy has gone, where they have got lawyers, you know, set up all over the country, ready to contest the vote wherever they can, you know, any close election. Yeah,
and they're doing it
already.
Almost 200 suits across the country already.
And they've got more in the hopper, ready to go if they're close. So, you know, that's the thing I think everybody needs to sort of, I mean, you know, one step at a time. Let's, you know, try and win the election and maybe win it enough so that this is not going to be as easy for them. But if it's going to be as close as people say it's going to be, this is going to be a very, very arduous post-election period for everyone. And we don't know what's going to happen. You know, that's not even counting the cult members who are ready to take up arms if they don't get what they want. So, you know, it's going to be fun.
Heather, Parton, Digby, always a pleasure. We'll, of course, link to Hullabaloo and to your pieces in salon.com. Thanks so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me. Yeah. Good luck.
Yep. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to seat our musical guest today. He goes by the moniker the Jazz Daredevil. He's been on the program before as his alter ego, Jon Benjamin, but now he's the Jazz Daredevil. And I think we've talked about this in the past. I'm not sure. But he'll be here in a moment, and he's going to play in studio. We'll be right back. so used to having like other people do your microphones for you. Oh, I'm sorry. We're back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report.
Can you lower your voice a little?
Will you please like help him? God.
No, I mean in general, even if not just.
Can I do an introduction?
Well, you did before. I heard it. It was,
We're back on the Majority Report. Joining us now in studio is Jon Benjamin, who goes by the moniker the Jazz Daredevil. Jon, welcome back to the program.
I guess thank you for having me.
You have been on in the past for this project that you're doing, known as the Jazz Daredevil.
Have I been on before to promote the Jazz Daredevil character? Can you not hear me?
Yeah, we can. We can hear you.
You're looking around like a crazy person, like you're like something's wrong. So I'm picking up bad vibes.
I agree.
Yeah, you were like.
I was just looking for. I just noticed you brought your instrument in. You haven't quite set it up yet.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
all right.
just
No, but I will when I play. I brought my keyboard.
So, Jon, you have. This is your. You have been doing this. You started a musical career. People may know you from your work as the voice of the Majority Report.
That's right. I think probably that was one of my first gigs.
Yep. Other people may know you from other smaller projects known as Bob's Burgers.
Smaller?
Archer. I'm just talking in terms of like cultural impact. You were
Then
also on
then-
the Katz, the Dr. Katz show.
Yeah. Why are you being so dismissive of my career?
No, I'm not being dismissive. This is you've had a tremendous amount of luck, and I think that is. I think people are impressed by that.
I think that's arguably true. I think
Oh, home movies. Someone else mentioned
home movies. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, also very lucky.
No, I
It's just it's like this perpetual luck. That
I would say, more luck than Sam.
some people have to rely on luck, others don't. I mean, it's all right. I'm just saying you've been very, very lucky in your career. That's a compliment.
Yes, and consistently lucky, I guess. And you were in show business for a bit, and I guess you were unlucky.
Oh, no, I feel very like I was very fortunate. Most of the stuff I had was not so much based on luck, but that's irrelevant.
Well, you
We're
were
not
lucky
talking about me.
lucky during the time before you were ousted from show business.
Right.
And that was
People don't get ousted from show business. That's
well,
absurd.
I'm being kind.
Oh.
It's like a euphemism for being nobody cares anymore about your work in that.
I haven't been doing it for years. I don't. I'm not. It doesn't matter.
Would you consider getting back into it? Because that would be
too busy doing this program every day.
Well, also arguably it would be problematic if you tried, because it might not work out like before.
Well, let's turn to your work as the Jazz Daredevil.
Speaking of things that don't quite work out.
Yeah,
Not all of my projects work out.
I listen. I'm quite familiar with your highball whiskey drink.
That was a big swing and a miss. Yeah,
Well, it's still available, though, right?
Yeah.
We may actually serve some of those at the
That would be nice.
at the live show at the Bell House. I think we're working on that.
For the election show.
Yeah, because apparently there's a huge warehouse full of discounted cans.
You can get them in bulk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can buy
I can't make any promises, but they might have gone bad.
All right. Well, that's all right. I mean, they were
because they were canned, I don't know, 7 years ago, and I would say give it a shot. I don't mind. I don't want to get anybody sick.
It's going to be a mass botulism event at the.
No, but whiskey is a natural,
antibiotic.
Not antibiotic, but right. If you drink it, it will help you not get sick from whatever's
Right.
wrong with what the drink is.
Yes, it works in the same way that bleach does. when you're dealing with
Right.
You have
when
put
you're
out
dealing with COVID.
I just want to remind people that you have put out you've now put out, this is your third album, is that right?
Third album. The first one was in 2015.
And it was entitled
shit. Well, I should have.
Well, I Should Have, and then in parentheses,
then an ellipsis. Learned how to play the piano.
and it is in fact an album of music where you are playing with some very accomplished jazz musicians,
Session musicians. Yep.
and you are playing along with them, but don't know how to play the piano.
I don't know how to play the piano. They know how to play their instruments, and we played together as an ensemble.
And I assume you've never seen those people since then.
No, they worked on their most recent album. They did. They did.
All right.
They don't necessarily appreciate my style, but they enjoy the work.
The money.
Well, that's cynical. They enjoy playing jazz, and they're playing jazz, and I'm trying to play jazz, so we're working together.
And you pay them.
I pay them, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Did you pay your
you pay us.
Yeah.
And they don't necessarily enjoy being here.
That's possible.
You'll never know. I mean, that's
I
what
guess
the money's
it's
for.
hard. It's hard to say.
Yeah, I mean that's how everything works. Yeah. Yeah.
The second album, what was that called?
That was called. You didn't say you were going to ask like these guys. Oh no.
Are you used to softball interviews?
Yeah. I'm used to no interviews.
Right.
The soundtrack collection, it was called.
Right. And
so it was covers of famous soundtrack tracks from movies such as Halloween, piano-oriented soundtracks.
And you had you flew to Hungary, is that correct?
Wait, what? What's that?
Didn't you fly somewhere to
on the last
perform
album
with an orchestra?
On the last album, we recorded with a full 75-piece orchestra in Budapest to play the prelude to 2001 Space Odyssey.
Oh, so it was just one of those songs.
Well, it's the most famous song from that movie. And I played the synthesizer with the orchestra, and they were not pleased with my performance.
The orchestra.
Yeah, they didn't know I couldn't play. So there was an American coming in who they didn't know, and I came in, and they don't have a lot of time. Right, because they're doing like several.
They're professionals.
They're professionals, so they're doing other jobs that day. I got like a half hour.
Mm-hmm.
Now for them, they know the prelude very well, so it's easy for them to play it. They didn't know that, but they all had headphones. So when I came in halfway through, they looked shocked.
Isn't there some video of that? Can we find that video? I think.
Yeah. They didn't stop playing though, which is like remarkable. How professional they were.
Did they just try to play over your contribution?
Despite the insane dissonance, they must have, that must have
felt
burned.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's musicians have like a here. This is the clip, I guess. Let's just play this.
Yes, and I was wearing a cosmonaut outfit. They didn't know that I was going to do that either.
Well, that was because
we were shooting.
It was an homage to
Space Odyssey,
Space Odyssey, which, of course, they were not cosmonauts. They were astronauts.
Yeah, it wasn't exactly connected to that. It was more random. My art is about random choices.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the conductor. He was good. They were all good.
Yeah.
I really fucked it up.
I actually thought that your playing was improved from your first album on that one.
I think I'm getting better. I'm not taking any lessons. I want to keep it that way because I think
That's the jazz part.
that's the jazz part. That's
Right.
in line with that's the ethos.
Spontaneous.
Right. It's
Yeah.
also
It's all-
means that you don't have to actually put any effort into it. You can just show up and touch the piano.
No, I had to put a ton of effort into going to Budapest. I had to fly to Budapest and set up that whole thing. That was a lot of work.
You did all that work. You didn't have like a producer do it.
I helped. There's many people who turned down that producer job, but yeah.
So you had to find the producer.
I do a lot of it's DIY.
DIY in the sense that you find someone else and they DIY it.
I helped. I don't mean to interrupt. I did help that process. I hired everybody.
Right. You paid them.
No.
Right. Okay. Well, fair enough. I mean, but you didn't actually cut the checks yourself, right? I mean, you have someone else do that too.
No, I don't have anybody cutting checks for me. I'm not a corporation.
Seriously?
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, you mean did I write out the checks?
Yeah.
No. I did have someone do that. I just remembered.
What did you think I was saying?
I just was, I guess, yeah. I lost track, but yes.
Yeah, you did.
But it was one person. That's it.
That you don't think that person has like an assistant?
I could check.
Yeah.
I would have to text.
All right. Well, so now you have your third album that is being put out by Sub Pop, the same entity that put out your first two albums.
Correct. Very
Isn't that
generous.
the Nirvana label?
It is.
Wow. You're
Yeah.
very prestigious, Benjamin.
Yeah.
I'm so blessed to be in the presence of like a real artist and celebrity.
I don't know anyone in Nirvana, even though we are technically on the same label. Although I don't think they're on Sub Pop anymore.
Okay.
The band is also not together anymore.
That's true. I don't know any of the members of the band. I've never met anybody from Nirvana. I saw them live in Boston.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was that with you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways,
Jeez.
so your third album is been released. You enjoyed, I guess, doing soundtracks so much that you did one.
Well, this one is very different conceptually than the last one.
This is a soundtrack to an album.
This is a soundtrack to a movie.
To a movie, I should say. And here is the images.
Mm-hmm.
Is that an Evil Knievel outfit?
That's the outfit that's my original outfit, and then I switched to the cosmonaut, and I switched back.
This is the Jazz
that.
Daredevil
Yes.
outfit.
Yeah.
You can see this outfit, I guess, is featured in your ads for your alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Now this is based on this is a soundtrack from a film, the original motion picture soundtrack of the, and then you put in parentheses, I don't know if you can see that, folks, unproduced film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So there's a soundtrack. You did the soundtrack first, and then you did the film?
we didn't do the film yet.
And do you have intentions to do the film?
I don't know. No one responded to the script.
So there is, in fact, a script.
There is, written by myself, Leo Allen, and Stephanie Lysite. We wrote it during the pandemic. It's a Jazz Daredevil movie featuring the Jazz Daredevil character. And we sent it around, and we got no response back. So in lieu of not making the movie, we made the soundtrack first. And then I hope that the movie will get produced at some point.
At some point. So
Well,
how is it a soundtrack if there is no movie?
There's some dialogue in there from the script that will give you a guide to some of what the movie's about, the narrative structure, but not all of it in the event that the movie gets made, so we don't spoil it. And it's a murder mystery. So you have to listen to the whole album. Basically, it's best to listen to it all the way through because you'll get a sense of the movie.
So just to be clear, where did you get this idea to do a soundtrack for a movie that did not exist?
Well, the initial idea was that the Jazz Daredevil who can't play piano would score a movie. And that would be really annoying.
But would anyone hire someone who doesn't know how to do music to do music for their movie?
No, but that's why we wrote our own movie, so that I could score it.
And we figured at one point we don't have to produce the movie.
No, nobody would produce the movie, and I couldn't afford to make a movie on my own. It's extremely expensive, but it's less expensive to make an album.
Are you familiar with the movie Tommy by The Who?
Yes.
Were you aware that that film, which was a 1975 film, was based on a soundtrack that was written in 1969?
I was not aware of that. Is that true?
Yeah, it is.
So this idea has already been done.
Yeah. And actually quite well by actual musicians.
I mean,
one of the most famous bands, at least in the rock genre.
That's a horrible thing to do to me right now. Like,
Well,
why would you?
Let's move on. Let's move on.
Well, no. It's proof of concept. It's proof of concept. He's putting
Well, that's
it out
true.
there.
Then it's the same thing.
6 years later, they make the movie.
Yeah.
6
Okay.
years later, Jazz
All right,
Daredevil.
well, let me ask you another question about that I've noticed from.
So actually, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's and been done by The Who. I would arguably one of the best bands of all time.
What is the theory behind using someone else's body for the model on this cover?
What do you mean?
Well, I'm looking at this cover of the Jazz Daredevil, and it looks like your face, but it sort of seems like someone who is like like tall, lean.
I don't see tall in that.
Well, he's taller than everyone else in the.
He's in the foreground.
Well, it's pretty. That's got a lot of foreground in there too. I mean, it just seems. I'm just curious. Who was the model for this image?
I assume it was me. It does look like my body, the way it is. Yeah.
Well, I feel like it looks like your body, maybe from the knees down, sort of.
I mean, if I put on the outfit, that looks exactly like what I look like. I would say.
Okay.
I think that's yeah.
Just curious about that. Now, on the back,
Are you saying that you think that I'm like heavier set or not in shape?
it's not so much.
I might be in a slightly idealized version of my body.
It is, I would say, pretty idealized.
Yeah.
Well, that's fine. I mean, it's the movie.
But that happens
this
a lot.
Is the movie version of the Jazz Daredevil.
Yeah,
right?
and if I did
the film version is always sort of slightly upgraded.
And if I did the movie, I
or
would
significantly upgraded.
If I did the movie, I think I probably would lose, I don't know, 30 to 40 pounds for the role.
Okay.
Like a Christian Bale.
Right.
What is this? The loser edition.
That's a Sub Pop. I don't know what that is. That's a Sub Pop promotion. That's how they put out, I think.
Limited edition first pressing. It doesn't make any sense to me.
That's you have to take that up with Sub Pop.
What is Lovers Must Learn?
That's a quote. It's not in the movie, but it's evocative of what the movie is about.
So it's a soundtrack of a movie that doesn't exist that is promoted by a catchphrase that does not exist in the movie that doesn't exist.
No.
I'm just trying to figure out what we're dealing with.
This is like very uncomfortable for me getting there, and I'm gonna get angry soon. But I don't understand what you don't understand. The movie was written.
Right. I got that part. I just said
movie.
This is a soundtrack for a movie that has not been produced. It's just for a script.
Yes.
And this is a
but I don't know why you
marketing tag.
Why are you grilling me on things that are just part of what is
everything else is ephemeral. I mean, there's no movie. This is the only tangible thing that we have here. And I'm asking you about the tag that's right here. And I just think it's interesting for the audience to understand that this is built on, something that doesn't exist, and this is a complete fabrication of something that doesn't exist. I find that interesting.
Everything then in the movies is a fabrication. It's a fabricated. The whole thing is a fabrication. What are you talking about?
Here is the picture of a script page, which means that it must exist.
No, it does. That's the first page of that's the first page of the script.
Let me ask you this, John.
Okay, wait. Let me interrupt you for a second. In movies that you see, you get angry when let's say they say the title of a movie. Like, let's say you're watching television with your son, right? Right after the movie, right? He walks at night.
Yeah.
Or something like that, right? Do you get furious about that?
Like at the end of The Dark Knight, when they say, he's the Dark Knight, right? They finally say it at the end of the movie.
Well, not in the movie.
No,
like in the
trailer.
Emma's getting confused with what you're trying to say.
In a trailer.
I'm trying to help
what you're
bridge this
trying to
gap
justify it doesn't happen with other things.
In a trailer, when there's a tagline to the movie, do you get as upset as you did over Lovers Must Learn?
Well, if there's a trailer in which it says, lovers must learn, I would get it. But this is
it's an artistic representation of the movie as a whole.
Why is it in quotes? Doesn't quotes denote that it's actually I'm quoting something?
Yes, somebody would eventually say it. Let's say.
Okay, so this is a hypothetical quote based upon something that could be said in the future. I mean, in that instance, everything could be put in quotes.
It seems like you don't understand
Let me just
movies.
ask you this, though, John. I'm curious.
Which is weird because
is this album, this project, really just a metaphor in some sense? Like you're creating a derivative work based on nothing. And I wonder if that's not a metaphor for, your life or your sense of self. Okay, so your entire affectation, everything you project,
are you reading
that
this?
you have achieved or not?
This?
I have questions. I do this professionally.
You wrote this out?
So I'm asking if this project, which if it isn't a metaphor for a life or a personhood, wherein you've achieved something, it's simply like a Potemkin village on some level, right? Which hides a core of hollowness or nothingness. That really provides no value to anyone outside of maybe yourself, but even then, maybe only for the projection.
Yeah. I mean, I could just as easily say you're projecting this onto me. Yeah. And I hope
let's have you play a song from the...
With that, I hope you don't feel that way, because that would be awful to have to live a life like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean... I guess though it becomes a muse a little bit, right? I mean, for a project. All right, so let's
I'm
have
moving
you
my computer.
Play.
That was a rough one.
Yeah. Well, we don't. This is not Fox News. We don't serve it up. We serve it up warm here.
Yeah.
All right, and now what song are you going to be playing?
I should have gone on the 5. That would have been easier.
There's still time.
What?
I should have reached out to the 5. Oh.
What? Tell us what song you'll be playing here.
Okay, so this is a song called. It's either "Walk Through the Woods" or "Walk in the Woods." Through the Woods. Walk Through the Woods. So this is a piece of scoring in the movie where I'm actually walking through the woods. If you If you get a chance, the Jazz Daredevil in the movie is walking through the woods.
Well, in the script.
And this is in the script. And this is a piece of scoring that goes with that.
What
now,
juncture in the movie is this?
This is like midway through the movie, and it's a turning point scene. Because I do meet somebody in the woods, a woman who approaches me.
In the woods?
Yeah, and you can all hear this.
She like a human or like some type of like elf or something like that? Or?
No, it's a human. It's not there's no fantasy elements in this movie.
How deep into the woods are you that you're walking into a woman?
Well, I'd have to share with you the whole story.
That's not necessary.
But I'm happy to.
I think like we want to really hear the music.
The Jazz Daredevil is propositioned by a woman.
Of course.
To come to her lake house mansion, right? And produce her first album.
Oh, I see.
So a lot of the songs on the album are her songs because I'm producing them, which I don't play on. They're actually another person's singing. So there's some songs like that. And then the rest is me scoring scenes from the movie. So I am at this lake house compound and I'm walking through the woods and I meet this other woman, not the woman who propositioned me.
Okay. I don't follow that.
What?
You're not even playing. This thing's not even plugged in. There's no plug in this. It's not plugged into anything. It's not making any music. What did you do?
I know. It does. What? Okay. All right. You caught me.
I don't understand. Like, what? Why did you do that?
Because I can't play.
Well, I understand. It didn't sound like you could play, but why didn't you?
But I can't play. I couldn't play before, and I can't reproduce me not playing. Right? So I have to use the backtrack.
You sync
because I can't redo the song. Do you understand? That's the whole point. I don't mean to yell. I'm sorry, everybody, but you shouldn't have done that.
Well, I mean, you said you were going to play, and I'm not going to have the audience think that you're.
Well, that's fine, but like I said, if I had to play the song over again, I would have to learn how to not play the way I'd not played the first time. And I can't hit those notes because I can't play.
So you're doing a live show in New York, is that right?
I mean, this is like totally embarrassing to be exposed on YouTube.
Well, it also was on a podcast on iTunes and Twitch.
But it's good, right?
Poggers.
Yeah, you know.
No, I mean, effectively, like, if you listen to that over a scene of a man walking through the woods and encountering a woman.
You're the one encountering the woman?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
My understanding is you have a live show in New York City.
We do, where I actually will be playing. I'll be plugged in that time. I'm going to learn how to do the songs. I have 2.5, 3 weeks to learn that, and I'm going to do it.
When is the live show?
November 7th at White Eagle Hall in Jersey City, and I will be playing the full album.
The full album.
The full album. They'll be playing the full album.
And you're learning that in 2 to 3 weeks?
Mm-hmm.
Will you be performing the dialogue sections?
We will be playing the dialogue sections in between, yeah. from the sound from the album. We won't be doing that live.
So this is at what place is it in where?
White Eagle Hall in Jersey City.
White Eagle Hall in Jersey City. We will put a link to that.
Yeah.
At in our YouTube and podcast description. White Eagle Hall.
If you liked what you heard here, then you're gonna hear that live.
But you'll actually be playing.
But I will play. I don't think I'll be able to learn exactly how to play that song, but I think that's fine. In a live performance, everything's different.
Right.
No jazz performance is the same.
Yep.
Like Miles Davis didn't play, Kind of Blue the same way every time
Right.
he hit the stage. He played it differently. That's
But the key word
Probably-
being that he played.
Consistently well.
Yeah.
yeah. Like I said, I will play consistently not well.
Well, there you have it, folks.
That's my promise. That's
All right. We will put a link to those tickets there. And where can people buy the album?
I would go to subpop.com or just Google Jazz Daredevil soundtrack, and there'll be links there on the internet. And why are you looking at me like that?
I just thought it was interesting that you don't know where to.
Well, you can get it for sure on Sub Pop, and I think it's probably pretty easy just to Google Jazz Daredevil, and the album will come up.
Great.
And then you would click on that. The thing, what do you call it?
The link.
Link.
Yep. All right, folks. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll do a Freebie Friday today. But we're going to take a quick break and help John out with his. Is that even like an actual instrument, or
That's a real Casio MT100 that I was using.
well, you weren't actually using.
Well, I was.
It was just.
In
I
a
was
sense.
utilizing it.
Yeah.
I mean, you were pressing things, but not
Well, if you didn't expose it,
associated with the sound that
if
was
you
coming.
didn't expose it and walk over here and ruin it, it would have been great.
Maybe.
But I guess that's who you are, the ruiner.
Well, a lot of people would say that's about integrity for the show. So.
I mean, I just don't think you should have done that. I think it's out of character.
Folks, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. If we could just get somebody in here to take him. Oh, let's take that break. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigland on the Majority Report. I'm going to read a couple IMs as we still, for someone who didn't plug in the machine, there was a lot of outloading roadies. It comes with a whole entourage. It's pretty, it seems a little bit excessive. Dennis Prager's bathwater. Weren't there also pipe bombs found at the DNC headquarters too? Yes. But Trump was right. Technically, that's not a gun. There were guns, though. They had guns. Not only did they have guns on their person in instances, there were oath keepers around the perimeter of Washington, D.C., waiting essentially for some type of signal.
Yeah, it's wild how much the claim that there was nobody armed in that entire crowd got passed
those
around.
people who were really advocating is a bunch of boomers who were just taking a walk through. You don't hear from them as much as you used to. Dennis Prager's bathwater. Remember that episode of Bob's Burger when Bob had to wrestle Hugo naked? If I remember correctly, Hugo won. Can you guys do a live studio rematch? We've gotten many requests for stuff like that. We've done it, not in a studio, but it's possible. It was also the only time I've ever sung professionally.
Really?
Yeah.
How would you rate your skills?
No, horrible. But they were like, that's amazing how you made it sound like it was almost good. And I'm like, yeah, it's actually no. Tic-tac-toe. Asked the Jazz Daredevil if he knew he would someday be on the same label as Nirvana when he saw them live decades ago. I am quite sure that he did not.
How old were you guys when you saw Nirvana?
27-ish, 26? I'm not sure. Somewhere around there.
Very
it would have
jealous
been
of
in
that.
1991, maybe. I think it was the Bleach tour.
That came out in, I think, 89.
Maybe it was 1990. Yeah, I'm not sure. And
I was right. Yeah, so 89, Bleach came out.
the head of Sub Pop I went to high school with.
Really?
Just ran into her recently. Emma Jordy enthusiast. That's a sick concept, dude. Just Milli Vanilli. Avant-garde outsider jazz. Oh, there you have it. All right, we'll read two more of these and then we'll get to this clip. Conservative mind virus. The Trump campaign apparently failed to submit a candidate statement for the Oregon voters pamphlet. I can't help but feel it was deliberate, especially since cries have already gone out, vaguely accusing various entities of interference. They have lost a bunch of what were obvious loses in lawsuits. And I do think that they are trying to create a narrative of that really is more for their own people. And I mean, this is, I feel like his plan B in staying out of jail. That's the only thing I can imagine. It's very difficult. It's very difficult to sort of parse. Marx Delano Roosevelt. Hey, crew, I just saw one of the most disgusting ads aired on ABC. It's a guy named Randall Terry running for president in the Constitution Party. ABC had a disclaimer saying they were required to play the ad. The ad itself showed literal photos of aborted fetuses, and he's duct taped to a chair begging Elon to save free speech while photos of aborted fetuses are shown on the screen. It's going around and people are outraged. Disgusting filth. Do you know who the guy is? Randall Terry, was he Westboro Baptist Church or no? I'm thinking of somebody else. Randall Terry, that name sounds familiar to me.
I just Googled it, and the Semaphore article about it is the presidential candidate forcing The View to air his ultra-grisly abortion ads. Weigel has a write-up about it. He's run for president before, Randall Terry.
Oh, Operation Rescue. That's what it was. Yes. He's from like one of the radical anti-abortion outfits. Darn it. I missed. Where's okay, here we go. He was head of Operation Rescue. Yeah, there you go. Credo leftist. What are your feelings about the upcoming debate with Tim Pool, Sam? Really, more than anything, I'm like, yeah, I just, it's a huge pain in the butt frankly, in terms of travel. Particularly because I can't go a day early because it's Halloween and I'm not going to miss going around with Saul. I've got maybe 2 years left of that, if
You could
that.
take Tim trick-or-treating.
Yep. Buckets and buckets. Mike from PA keeps saying he isn't voting for Harris. Hopefully he's smart enough to at least get a Benjamin from Elon. Yeah, I mean, in Pennsylvania, that's, a bigger problem. There was a great thread that...
Waleed Shahid had.
Yeah.
I can find it really quickly.
I had it in front of me. Here it is. Yeah, Waleed Shahid had. And it really, I mean, we've articulated something very similar, and I think others have. Organizing doesn't offer shortcuts. We have to ask ourselves why Representative Williams in Georgia or Senator Padilla in California won't support an arms embargo. Third-party dreams leapfrog past this question, assuming Democrats can be, quote, punished into policy change if Trump wins. But power doesn't work that way. After the March on Washington, Rustin emphasized politics, not protest, saying, he's talking about Bayard Rustin, Washington bends to power. We can't count on general strikes to face AIPAC's influence. We need real power. Morality won't be enough.
And I mean, I would just say there's a lot of there's in the constituency in the Democratic Party, it's growing the desire to change course on Israel policy. I mean, you have Nancy Pelosi criticizing Netanyahu publicly, even if that's all it is. You had, I think it was Sarah Jacobs, who's a representative in Democratic leadership, calling for a review of the policy, and more Democrats calling for an arms embargo. So from that situation standpoint, you want to elect the party whose constituency includes people that care about the lives of Palestinians. Trump gets elected, he doesn't give a crap. But even if you want to put that issue to the side for a second, and it's genocide, so it's impossible to do so. Another Trump term would ensure Supreme Court conservative control for around 40 years. So I think the reason you see women driving to the polls with such enthusiasm, and there being such a gender gap, is that it's actually like a kitchen table issue for us. It affects our rights, and that enough for me in terms of keeping right-wingers out of the Supreme Court is enough to justify a vote for Harris, especially if you're in a swing state. So
let me just read this one other tweet from this thread, and we can link to this thread. The horrific reality is, she writes, is that the anti-war movement hasn't built enough power to challenge AIPAC's influence in Washington. Leaders like Harris see more risk than reward, risking coalition fractures. Most Senate Democrats oppose an arms embargo, and Bowman and Bush paid the price. Speaking of Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush, who lost in their primaries. But movements and Democratic voters have shifted the party away from segregationists, anti-choice forces, big oil, backers of apartheid South Africa. How? By building inside-outside infrastructure, forcing the key stakeholders in the party to fight back against hate, division, and oppression. I hear the pain of my Palestinian and Lebanese brothers and sisters who can't support a party funding bombs that devastate their families. I feel the grief of endless WhatsApp updates from home, the justifiable rage that follows. I don't blame any directly impacted person who can't bring themselves to vote for Harris. For others looking to third parties or Trump, what comes after that one singular choice on election day matters much, much more. What we do outside the ballot box is crucial. Walking away is what AIPAC wants and risks leaving the legislative, executive, and judicial branches of government to those who do much, much worse.
That's exactly right. And then I'm glad he makes that point about the directly affected folks, because it's impossible to make the case absent Harris changing her rhetoric to people like, who are experiencing that. what would be different for this extremely relevant issue because people in Palestine are being slaughtered at this moment. But if you're thinking about more voting strategically, I think that argument is exactly right.
And I think the idea that, I mean, I think he starts it off at one point by saying voting is not a moral act. It is a small action in which to slowly build power.
Or you can view it as harm reduction. Either way.
I mean, we also saw what happens when, say, Donald Trump wins against a candidate who sucks. That's a Democrat, and it wasn't good for anything, and it wasn't good for Palestine.
Yeah.
All right, let's return to the spirit of the fun half on a Friday. We will obviously have more time to talk about those type of things later. We've got a couple of weeks going ahead. But, this is DSA Aaron in Atlanta. It's a genocide. Everyone should be affected. Yes. And I agree with that perspective. It's really just a question of what is the utility of not voting, either voting for Trump or voting for a third party. What is the utility? That's the only question in my mind. Demian, voting is a chess move, not a love letter. Yes. All right. Oh, but speaking of which, we've had one minor success in our struggles for fighting back against the horrible statements of one individual. And ladies and gentlemen, it appears that Jerry Seinfeld has changed his mind.
Not about the genocide. He was at the Mets game saying "Go Mets" and the IDF. So.
Oh yes. No.
I don't know if that's changing.
Yes, but he has changed his mind on another burning issue that we have had, and that is whether the left or even the extreme left has ruined comedy for everyone. And now this, of course, I know people were very concerned. We had an extended period of time where there was no comedy in the country because of people at colleges and whatnot. But it appears that Jerry Seinfeld has had a change of heart and or mind. Here he is on the Tom Papa podcast.
So there were two things that I have to say I regret and that I have to take back. I said that the extreme left has suppressed the art of comedy. Mm-hmm. I did say that. Yeah. That's not true. It's not true. No? No. If you're Lindsey Vonn, if you're a champion skier, you can put the gates anywhere you want on the mountain. She's going to make the gate. Whatever the culture is, we make the gate. Mm-hmm. You don't make the gate, you're out of the game. The game is, where is the gate? How do I make the gate and get down the hill in the way I want to? So does culture change? And are there things I used to say that I can't say, that everybody's always moving? Yeah, but that's the biggest, easiest target. The accuracy of your observation has to be 100 times finer than that. Mm-hmm. So I don't think as I said, the extreme left has done anything to inhibit the art of comedy.
Such a massive departure from what he was saying a few months ago, and I'd be really curious to find out who he's spoken to recently.
I listen, I want to welcome converts and people who now see the light. And, it doesn't necessarily change my perspective on his comedy or his other politics or whatnot. But what happened?
I know.
One wonders, and to be fair, there may be more, substantiation on the Tom Papa podcast, and I'll be sure to tune into it. But one wonders what happened. He goes out for a tour in support of his new movie, Frosted, which, if you'll recall, was a hard-hitting satire about the world of breakfast foods.
Cereal, yeah.
And claiming that, he had an extensive sort of, he had really thought it through. Not well, but he had thought it through. He was saying, back in my day, there were shows like, All in the Family and other sitcoms, which incidentally, I should tell you, said before, Norman Lear wrote these.
Leftist.
About as avowed lefty as you could get. He sunk a ton of money into left progressive sort of organizations. And in fact, those shows would be considered very woke for its era. Nevertheless, he lamented that, and he also had said that, that college audiences were bad, and I don't know. It feels like he's had some type of reconciliation with his kid or his agent, or Frosted, maybe
Netflix
was got a frosty reception.
Netflix said, hey, we have a lot of young people in our audience. Maybe don't go on about wokeness and all this kind of stuff if you want people to actually stream the stupid movie that you put out.
Yeah, because all the people actually paying for Netflix are the kids who are letting their parents use their password. Speaking from experience here, but this is actually Jerry returning to form. This is him with Ricky Gervais in 2018. And this is one of my favorite new channels. We played him going on about Joe Rogan, The Elephant Graveyard, with a video entitled Jerry Seinfeld's Entire World is Falling Apart. I'll just play a little section from that here.
Chaucer. Jerry was on Ricky Gervais's Sirius radio show in 2018 when Ricky brought this subject up, and Jerry had a radically different opinion.
But we don't tell certain jokes because we know they're, in inverted commas, wrong.
Always. We've always done that. The mental agility that is required to execute this job is an essential part of it. Comedians complaining, oh, I can't do this joke now because so-and-so is going to be offended. That's right, you can't. So do another joke. Find another way around it. Use a different...
Now, Elephant Graveyard does go into the whole gay French king affair, and I think that was kind of the precipitating event that made Jerry be like, well, I can't do my jokes anymore. I'm missing these gates, I guess.
That's what it is. The knees blow out, and then you're like, why do we have to have these gates? Right. Why can't we just do straight down? Why does it have to be slalom? Why are we spending so much time on that? And then for whatever reason, he returned to form and realized, okay, yeah, no, you need the gates.
I also wonder sometimes when people like Jerry, who, again, let it be known, is a huge Zionist and has some really big racist opinions about Palestinians, when they talk about things like All in the Family, it reminds me sometimes of, I know some frat guys from college that watch The Wolf of Wall Street and they think it's sick. And they have no idea that it's supposed to be a satire, and they identify with Jordan Belfort. There were a lot of guys that are like that. Sometimes I think there's these white men that more identify with Archie Bunker than realize that he's there to basically hold a mirror up to racist people in the country. And I wonder if Jerry's in that category.
There was a lot of people concurrent with the Colbert report that was on that were like, finally we have someone espousing our views on
just watch Bill O'Reilly, right?
The first sort of libertarian but war supporting guy I ever met, which is, I guess, looking back, a very strange thing, thought that Colbert was one of him.
Yep. There you go.
Amazing.
It is amazing.
He was parodying O'Reilly, right? That was his entire thing.
Totally.
Yeah. Talk about he has good politics, Stephen Colbert.
Or you want to do Musk thing? Which one's the worst, best one of Musk?
Oh, I think there's a couple. We should just do both of them.
Okay.
7 is insane.
So Elon Musk is at a rally, doing a solo rally for Trump in Philly, and
it's the power of his charisma, Sam. It's going to drive people to the polls.
This is the thing. When Patton when they did that thing in the movie Patton, right, where Patton is in front of a massive American flag, what they're trying to communicate is how big of a personality, how charismatic Patton was. That like you could like he could compete with a supersized icon that was already sort of big. And in this clip, you're going to see Elon Musk in front of a huge flag, and it's almost like we're watching like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids in real time.
But it's just obvious that Biden's not in charge. It's obvious that Kamala's not in charge. I mean, they just replaced the Biden puppet with the Kamala puppet. Very obviously. And
pause it. I just want to explain to people who may not be able to see the image, or even people who are seeing the image. This is a rally. This is not it almost comes off, I want to say, as like a TED talk, but it really comes off more like a TEDx talk. Like the TEDx talks were like, oh, we're doing this in a black box theater.
You could license it
in Hingham, Massachusetts. Right. And it's really sort of like more of a knockoff.
It's TEDx Fargo, and they're going to talk about homeopathy.
And just the echoing noise of like of Elon Musk there. Do we have any clips of like how many people are there? Because it doesn't feel. Make sure you say, because it doesn't feel like, you know, there's 25,000 people. It comes so enwrapped with what he's saying that they can't even. You don't even hear them. It's like a pin drop.
They just replaced the Biden puppet with the Kamala puppet. Very obviously, and so you can tell, like, if the teleprompter stops working, then the puppet breaks, and it's like, oh, the puppet just starts looping because the teleprompter broke. I don't have a teleprompter. I can just talk like a normal human.
Okay, another tight shot of the audience, but just go back a little bit. So this is he's just mixing metaphors. Can we hear that again?
But the other thing I want people to think about is, okay, wasn't Biden supposedly like the Kamala puppet, or is it that it was Obama or Soros?
Yeah, and now there's like a bunch of puppeteers, which like usually when they talk about like somebody pulling the puppet strings, there's like one guy pulling the puppet. Now we have like a puppeteer for every single puppet. This is not really.
It doesn't make too much sense.
There is there's a lot of puppeteers. It's almost like a
cabal,
like a network, a cabal of people pulling the strings.
Just have the puppeteers play the role.
The puppet just starts looping because the teleprompter broke. I don't have a teleprompter. I can just talk like a normal human.
That would be that would be a robot.
So I think it's not, from what I can tell, it's not one puppet master. It's many, but interesting to see the crossover between the Epstein client list and Kamala's puppet masters.
Oh, pause it.
I bet there's a lot of.
You know what's interesting about the Epstein client list?
There we go.
Picture of Elon Musk
with Ghislaine Maxwell and Trump with Epstein.
Yeah, that is fascinating.
How about the quotes of Trump saying in the newspaper back in the day that Epstein really likes him young?
I mean, this is a fascinating, like, if he's not consciously trying to sort of throw the scent off the trail, like, it's just weird. He doesn't realize that there's probably, I don't know how many hundreds of people who had that type of close proximity to Epstein, but no one else in the audience does. Just him.
And anybody who would follow that would know that about Trump and him.
Right.
Well, they were spies. They were double agents. They were probably trying to get Epstein on, prosecute him. Also, just a reminder, Donald Trump's labor secretary, Acosta, was the guy who fashioned the deal that let Epstein off in Florida. All right, let's play this one more clip from this really
rousing,
crazy
Like
rally.
The piss yellow MAGA hat is something else. I know he's going for gold, which is stupid in and of itself, but
he paid $45 million for that hat. That's you got to get that on the
great deal
MAGA merch.
And this is him taking a question from the audience on one of the more pressing issues of our time.
So much for being here. It means so much, and I think it's really in line with your character as I've come to know you from listening to you speak in interviews. In addition to voting for Donald Trump, what can the average citizen do to help train AI to be truth-seeking?
Well, I think
I don't like to make fun of. I don't like to make fun of Trump voters.
The propagandized to a
Too much,
pathological extent.
But I just don't understand. In addition to voting for Donald Trump, like, what does that tell us about what she thinks voting for Donald Trump is a way to bring truth to things? And then the other one is, how do we get AI to bring us more truth? Okay.
AI to be truth-seeking.
Well, I think definitely, publicly pushing to ensure that AI is truth-seeking and is not sort of politically correct or which means factually incorrect. That's a big deal. Like, just speak out on social media, and certainly complain loudly when other companies attempt to essentially program their AI with a dystopian San Francisco, Berkeley philosophy. And if you want to know where that philosophy leads, just walk around the streets of San Francisco. But be careful, because do not get killed by a violent drug zombie, because they're all over this downtown SF.
I'm looking at one right now.
So you can see where does that philosophy lead? And unfortunately, I think a lot of the AIs are being programmed, at least implicitly, with that misanthropic dystopian philosophy. Yeah.
Okay, so that was a planted question. I'm sorry. That was a planted question. No one, maybe not. My theory is that it's a planted question.
Why would he have such a... Is that sort of like his fixed answer for AI? Is like it allows him to go into the San Francisco's being run by zombies and woke stuff?
I mean, he's in the AI business. He's got that Grok thing. Peter Thiel's in the AI business. Why? What regular voter is like, what more can we do other than vote for Trump and to also improve our artificial intelligence business? It's like, what are you talking about? Outside of if she were, I don't know, maybe
that is
someone
a bizarre question.
It's not a kitchen table issue or something that you might hear at a Trump rally,
or you might hear it when someone's going to see Elon Musk.
QAnon kitchen table, yeah.
Yeah.
The AI is coming for us, because I think his initial reaction was like, "This is such a moronic question." Why? Because most of this was him talking about you need to register to vote in the next 3 days in Pennsylvania. I don't think. I don't know. I think this is just where they've got their base is just insanity.
But if it was a QAnon question, it would have been more, I feel like, about like blood drinking and these like visceral images. The question was about was very just tailored to these tech freaks.
Well, but the whole thing is that he represents to these voters, and they are, Muscovites, if you will. He represents to them the liberating Twitter and finally allowing Twitter to tell the truth. I would put the number of anti-vaxxers and COVID deniers in that room at least 50%. Maybe 75%.
Yeah.
And then the idea is like, how do we have AI?
Say we can jail Fauci.
Yes. Say we could jail Fauci and not suppress all of the truth about race-based IQs.
Right.
And what's also fascinating about this, aside from the sort of the irony of him saying, Kamala's, puppeteer or whatever, this guy paid how many hundreds of millions of dollars? $200
million a month he's supposed to be playing.
$200 million so that he could actually play campaigner in a room full of like 300 people who are already going to vote for Trump. I mean, this is not like, the news of Elon Musk at this point, like coming to Philadelphia, it's got to be, maybe there's an article about it, but like, are people, I don't know.
But that's what's so odd about this whole period of the election. Like, Trump has been outsourcing some of the ground game to Elon. They're running ads about how Kamala supports trans surgeries in prisons, like, which again, independent analyses, journalists have talked about how this strategy didn't work for the Republicans in 2022. So it's like these campaigns are tailored to the obsessions of these two men. And I don't know what the direction is.
I think if you always look at this as like, there's two agendas, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, part of Trump's running is to also prove that the election has been stolen from him. Like, he's trying to win, and he's also trying to sort of backfill with this notion of like, this is my plan B. I think people like Musk and frankly, Bobby Kennedy, I mean, I think all these people who are just like clearly mercenary about it too. I can't help but think that Musk's get out the vote campaign is there's probably some measure of like data mining and God knows what, like,
where can I skim?
Yeah. Where can there's a skim, or there's some type of business angle. I think, Kennedy probably has some other aspiration in terms of like, launching some other enterprise that would come out of this on some level. I don't know what it would be, some type of, I don't know, anti-vax, network or whatnot. I mean, I think that was Trump's, when he ran the first time, that was basically his agenda.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't think he was going to win. And this time you look at like all the peripheral stuff, his Bitcoin, his crypto play, he's basically just piloting all these different scams, part to raise money to keep him out of jail. But I think this is the thing that we don't fully appreciate, is that I think just broadly speaking, look, there's a lot of, campaign consultants who make a lot of money off of this. And a lot of times that's what, dictates their consulting advice. But the world is just so much more expansive on the right. And there's so many more ways of making money on the right in that way. And their pursuit of these other agendas often come at the expense of the primary agenda, or what we presuppose would be the primary agenda, and they don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care. Oh, this is amazing. We got to play this clip. Donald Trump on the Dan Bongino show. There's, at one point, it's going to be clear that, like, there's money behind this stuff that is, platforming these guys on top of their platforms. I mean, I'm just sorry. There's no reason for Dan Bongino to have exploded in the way that he does. I see people say, like, we've got to get out there. All these right-wing shows are like the top podcasts and whatnot, but there is subsidies floating
100%.
around. If somebody's paying $30 million to hype Trump on Polymarket, it gives you a sense. It's the same theory I have like with the tenant media thing. If you are taking $100,000, like I was talking to the Vanguard guys about this, and it like occurred to me, like, Dave Rubin made more in his tenant media deal, and frankly, Tim Pool in his tenant media deal to license his show, made more in 2 weeks than I made in licensing this thing to Peacock.
Yeah.
For an entire year. 50 times more. More than 50 times.
You bad at deals.
Like,
yeah, get your business stuff together. That's what Tim
I was
said.
like,
Be a CFO, Sam.
And I was like, I can't believe this.
Right.
And if it came from anybody except for people who were in a business that I could turn on and say like, oh yeah, they also have The Office or whatever it is. I would have been very, very suspicious. But for them, getting money from sources that are paying them well above market rate is just like, of course, that's
Tuesday.
That's the business they've been swimming in.
They were used to it. It's what you've
100%.
said. That's why they took the
100%.
money with so few questions, is because they probably have done this kind of thing before.
Yeah. And it's like, never had a problem in the past. Why would I have a problem now? Anyways, here's Donald Trump on the Dan Bongino show, which is interesting because he said no to the shade room
After like 3 weeks of negotiations with them, he's been dropping out of multiple interviews this week, and people are kind of raising their eyebrows because he's not sounding great in public.
I wonder what the nature of those interviews were too, though.
Yeah, exactly.
But Democrats don't have to be honest. They really don't have to be honest because they will never be accused of anything. It's interesting. I was so amazed that Harvey Weinstein got schlonged. He got hit as hard as you can get hit because he was sort of the king of the woke, right? Yeah. And yet he got hit. And I figured that maybe he wouldn't get hit so hard. But boy, did he get, you don't know him well, I don't know him well. But I watched that, and it was amazing. So when they do get hit, they get hit. But that's the only one I can think of. Normally they protect everybody. What they did with Adams, I think, is very suspect.
I heard you bring that up last night.
But
yeah, so
Democrats don't have to be honest. They really don't have to.
Let's be clear here. Adams and Harvey Weinstein and, well, I don't know. I guess you could probably
the kings
say,
of the
Matt
world.
Lauer and just about so many people who got taken out with Me Too.
Schlonged, as he said.
Yes, someone gave him a penis.
The Schlong
Harvey Weinstein was penised.
If the cameras were not on, he would have said that they got effed.
Yeah.
But he kind of caught himself there.
Yeah.
I don't know if schlonged is much better.
Schlonged is more just visceral.
I think it literally means penised. But that's evidence. It's fascinating. They will cite evidence that completely disproves their entire theory and say that, which is suspicious. It's like,
actually proves my point.
Well, it doesn't prove my point. It's suspicious. It doesn't contradict my point, even though it contradicts my point. But this is sort of like Brett Weinstein territory. It almost feels like they are doing things contrary to my conspiracy theory as a way of
to throw me off.
Throw me off to like they're doing some type of double trickster on me.
And what was he trying to say? He was so amazed that Weinstein got schlonged.
He immediately contradicted himself because he's like, the Democrats they get away with everything.
But he was sort of king of the woke, right? And yet he got hit, is the quote.
So yeah. And then he's like, well, okay, except for that main example, I can't think of any others. But of course, there are a number of examples.
They bring up Eric Adams, who's also been.
He feels sympathy for those guys. That's basically what he's talking around. He's like, oh, Harvey and I, we're kind of in the same boat, I mean, hey, Trump has been accused by dozens of women of sexual assault, found liable of sexual battery in the E. Jean Carroll case. So makes sense that when he thinks about Harvey, he goes, oh, another one of us went down.
Can't do anything anymore.
People are saying that he sounds like he's dying. It did occur to me that if you're just listening on audio, you would be like, whoa.
It's wild how much worse he looks even than when Biden dropped out of the race. I think he's slowed in the past month. I think that kiss he gave to Hulk Hogan was the worst.
That was it. That was when
goodbye.
Trump was hot. And now
last bit of vivacity.
Exactly. I used it all up on that kiss.
Like the Grinch heart, it just
all
worked
of my
too hard. And
all
then
of
broke in
my
half.
passion for life went out of my face in that moment.
Keeps him in reserve.
Aesop Fables, did you see Trudeau alleging that Tucker and Jordan Peterson got Russia Today money for vaccine disinformation? I'm going to need a little more evidence, but I wouldn't be shocked. All right, folks, that's the program for today. Let me read just 5 IMs, and then we'll get out of here. Emma, you're going.
Orlando's show I'm going to be on in 15 minutes.
Oh boy. Okay, then 3. Instant. I'm staying in the race. Hey Sam, you stated throughout last week that you're unsure if we will not have clear election results for a long time. Can you elaborate on this? Are you worried about election challengers being successful? I think it has the potential of being close and, getting election results the next day, but then it's going to be contended and contentious. How seriously people take it will be a function of things that are out of our control. Things like the media and whatnot. That's what I meant. I think I addressed it in the program today. John Miller, it's always cathartic to hear from Digby, even if the topics of discussion aren't. Indeed. Madman Sam. One time I was applying for executive position at Starbucks, and the interviewer asked me how I plan on cutting operational costs. I proceeded to tell him about the time I talked to a used car salesman down to $1,200. Trump voice. I said, there's too much fat. I'm not signing it. Dennis. The guy's name was Dennis. Dennis, I got to have a 3 in it. Worked like a charm. I call it art of the deal. All right. And the final IM of the week. Cole from Little Rock. If I were an apocalyptic Christian, the union of Elon and Donald J. Trump would be terrifying to me. Weird thing is that most of the Revelation studying bunch that I know are applauding it, which tells me a lot about what they believe. Schlonged is far worse than effed. At least the latter is a part of a normal human's vernacular.
I think he meant stupped, but he said schlonged.
This is not the first time he said schlonged, actually. I think he did it in 2016. I got a hazy memory of that.
Better memory than mine.
I think it was to do with insulting some woman again.
Okay.
Matt, Emma, great job today. Bradley and Absentia. Folks, we will see you Monday.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the lie bar, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I get somewhere the choice was made, for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I get somewhere lost my drive between the 101 and the 5. Do you know how far the detour takes you? Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. The months drifted into years while I shifted